What if the prison you hate today is actually preparing you for a position you prayed for tomorrow? More than 3,000 years ago, a young man named Joseph was betrayed by his own brothers. He was sold into slavery. He was falsely accused, and he was thrown into a dark Egyptian prison. But that dark season was not his ending. It was his training ground. Today, you are going to learn English conditionals through one of the most extraordinary stories in the Bible. By the end of this lesson, you will understand the zero conditional, the first conditional, the second conditional, the third conditional, and mixed conditionals. And you will learn them not by memorizing boring rules, but through a story about faith, failure, patience, and purpose. So listen carefully and repeat after me. Our story begins in Canaan. Joseph was his father Jacob's favorite son. Joseph was given a beautiful, multicolored coat. One day, Joseph shared his dreams with his brothers. He dreamed about sheaves of wheat. He dreamed about stars bowing down to him. But his brothers became jealous, very jealous, and jealousy can be dangerous. One day, his brothers took his coat. They threw Joseph into a dry pit. Then they sold him to traders traveling to Egypt. Imagine that. The people who should have protected him betrayed him. Joseph arrived in Egypt as an enslaved servant in the house of Potiphar, an important officer of Pharaoh. But Joseph did not give up. He worked hard. He acted with integrity, and he became responsible for Potiphar's entire household. Then everything changed again. Potiphar's wife falsely accused Joseph. Joseph was innocent, but he was sent to prison. Years passed. Joseph was in darkness, but he continued to serve others. He also interpreted dreams. Then one day, Pharaoh had disturbing dreams. He dreamed about 7 healthy cows being eaten by 7 thin cows. He dreamed about 7 healthy ears of grain being swallowed by 7 withered ears. Nobody could explain the dreams. Then someone remembered Joseph. Joseph stood before Pharaoh, and Joseph explained the meaning. There would be 7 years of abundance. Then there would be 7 years of famine. Joseph did not only interpret the problem, he proposed a solution. Store food during the good years. Prepare for the difficult years. Pharaoh recognized Joseph's wisdom, and Joseph rose to a position of great authority in Egypt. He organized the storage of grain. Then the famine came. Joseph's brothers traveled to Egypt looking for food, and Joseph recognized them. He had the opportunity for revenge, but he chose forgiveness. Joseph did not allow his past to control his future. And now, this story becomes an English lesson. Let's begin. Zero conditional. The zero conditional is used for general facts, repeated results, and things that are generally true. Listen carefully. If you prepare, you are stronger when difficulty comes. Repeat. If you prepare, you are stronger when difficulty comes. Again, if you prepare, you are stronger when difficulty comes. The basic structure is simple. If plus present simple plus present simple. For example, if you practice, you improve. If you prepare, you become stronger. If you ignore a problem, it usually becomes worse. Notice something important. We are not talking about one specific future event. We are talking about a general truth. If you practice, you improve. If you prepare, you become stronger. Joseph understood this principle. If you do not store food during good seasons, people may suffer during difficult seasons. The lesson is simple. Wisdom prepares before the crisis arrives. Now it is your turn. Complete this sentence. If you practice English every day, you pause. Think about your answer. If you practice English every day, you improve. Excellent. Now say it again. If you practice English every day, you improve. Let's move forward. The first conditional. The first conditional is different. We use it for a real possibility in the future. The structure is if plus present simple plus will plus base verb. Listen, if you prepare today, you will be ready tomorrow. Repeat, if you prepare today, you will be ready tomorrow. Again, If you prepare today, you will be ready tomorrow. Now think about Joseph. Joseph understood that difficult times were coming, so he prepared. He could say, if the harvest is abundant, Egypt will store grain. Repeat, if the harvest is abundant, Egypt will store grain. Another example, if the famine comes, people will need food. Repeat, if the famine comes, people will need food. Notice the pattern. If the condition happens, the result will happen. This is a real possibility. Here is the motivational lesson. You cannot control every future event, but you can prepare for what may come. Now practice. If you keep learning English, you will pause, think. If you keep learning English, you will improve. Again, if you keep learning English, you will improve. Now another one. If you practice every day, you will pause. If you practice every day, you will become more confident. One more. If you refuse to give up, you will pause. If you refuse to give up, you will become stronger. Excellent. Now we move into imagination. The second conditional is used for imaginary, hypothetical, or unlikely situations. The structure is if plus past simple plus would plus base verb. Listen, if I were more confident, I would speak more English. Repeat, if I were more confident, I would speak more English. Again, if I were more confident, I would speak more English. Notice something interesting. We use a past form, but we are talking about an imaginary situation in the present or future. For example, if I were you, I would keep practicing. Repeat, if I were you, I would keep practicing. In formal English, we often use were with all subjects. If I were, if he were, if she were, if Joseph were alive today, what would he say? Think about that. If Joseph were alive today, what would he tell you? About difficult times? Maybe you would say, do not let your circumstances define your identity. Your current situation does not have to define your future. Now think about yourself. If you were completely confident speaking English, what would you say? Pause. Think about your answer. Now say it. If I were completely confident, I would. Excellent. One more question. If you could change one thing about your English, what would you change? Pause, think, and answer aloud. This is the power of the second conditional. It allows you to imagine a different future. Now we enter a deeper part of the story. The third conditional. The third conditional talks about the past, but not the real past. It talks about an imaginary past, something that did not happen. The structure is if plus had plus past participle, plus would have plus past participle. Listen, if Joseph had given up, he would have lost his opportunity. Repeat, if Joseph had given up, he would have lost his opportunity. Again, if Joseph had given up, he would have lost his opportunity. Another example, if Joseph's brothers had not sold him, his life would have been different. Repeat, if Joseph's brothers had not sold him, his life would have been different. But they did sell him. That is why we use the third conditional. We are imagining a different past. Here's another example. If Joseph had refused to forgive, the family story would have ended differently. Think about that. The past cannot be changed. Joseph could not return to the day he was thrown into the pit. He could not erase the prison. He could not change what his brothers had done, but he could choose what to do with his past. And that gives us a powerful life lesson. We cannot rewrite yesterday, but we can decide what yesterday means today. Now think about your own English journey. If you had started learning English earlier, what would you have done differently? Pause. Think. Now complete the sentence. If I had started earlier, I would have. Say it aloud. Excellent. Do not use the third conditional to punish yourself. Use it to learn. Your past can teach you. Your past can make you wiser, but your past does not have to imprison you. And now we reach the most advanced structure, mixed conditionals. Mixed conditionals connect different times. The past can affect the present, and the present can be connected to the past. Let's look at the first pattern. If plus past perfect plus would plus base verb, past condition, present result. Listen, if Joseph had given up in prison, he would not be the leader he became. Repeat, if Joseph had given up in prison, he would not be the leader he became. The decision happened in the past, but the result continued into his future. This is why mixed conditionals are powerful. The past can influence the present. Now let's look at another example. If you had practiced more English in the past, you would be more confident today. Repeat, if you had practiced more English in the past, you would be more confident today. Again, if you had practiced more English in the past, you would be more confident today. Now we can look at the second mixed pattern. A present condition can be connected to a past result. For example, if Joseph were less forgiving, he would have treated his brothers differently. Repeat, if Joseph were less forgiving, he would have treated his brothers differently. This connects a present characteristic with a past result. Now think about yourself. If you were more disciplined today, you would have achieved more yesterday. Think about that sentence. If you were more disciplined today, you would have achieved more yesterday. This is a mixed conditional. The present condition is connected to a past result. Now let's review all 5 conditionals. 0 conditional. If you practice, you improve. Repeat. If you practice, you improve. First conditional. If you practice, you will improve. Repeat. If you practice, you will improve. Second conditional. If you practice more, you would improve faster. Repeat. If you practice more, you would improve faster. Third conditional. If you had practiced more, you would have improved faster. Repeat. If you had practiced more, you would have improved faster. Mixed conditional. If you had practiced more in the past, you would be more confident today. Repeat. If you had practiced more in the past, you would be more confident today. Now connect the grammar with the lessons from Joseph. 0 conditional. Facts create awareness. If you prepare, you are stronger when difficulty comes. First conditional. Possibility creates action. If you practice today, you will be ready tomorrow. Second conditional. Imagination creates transformation. If you believed in yourself, what would you build? Third conditional. The past creates wisdom. If you had acted differently, the past might have changed. But wisdom learns from yesterday. And mixed conditional. Your past can influence your present, but it does not have to imprison your future. Now, let's take a moment to look at the historical context. Joseph's story is connected to ancient Egypt, but we need to be careful. Archaeology has not discovered an Egyptian inscription that says this was Joseph. The historical relationship between the biblical story and ancient Egyptian records is debated. Egyptologist James K. Hoffmeyer has studied the Egyptian background of the Joseph narrative. Other scholars, such as Kenneth A. Kitchen, have examined historical parallels involving trade, West Semitic populations, slavery, and Egypt, but scholars do not all agree. Donald B. Redford offered a different perspective on the dating and literary development of the Joseph narrative. Other scholars, including Neely Shupak and Bernd Schipper, have also contributed to the discussion, and this is important. Studying ancient history requires curiosity, evidence, and humility. We can explore the evidence without pretending that every question has been answered. Now, think about Joseph one last time. Joseph could not control the pit. He could not control being sold. He could not control the false accusation. He could not control the prison, but he could control what he did with every season of his life. And you may not control how long it takes to become fluent in English. You may not control your accent today. You may not control every opportunity that comes your way, but you can control whether you practice today. So let's finish with our final review. 0 conditional. If you practice, you improve. First conditional. If you practice, you will improve. Second conditional. If you practice more, you would improve faster. Third conditional. If you had practiced more, you would have improved faster. Mixed conditional. If you had practiced more in the past, you would be more confident today. Now remember this. Your past may explain where you are, but it does not have to decide where you are going. And now, I have a challenge for you. Complete the sentence. In the comments, if I keep learning English, I will write your answer in English. Then tell me which conditional is hardest for you. 0, first, second, third, or mixed. Write your answer in English and read some of the other answers. You are not just studying grammar. You are practicing communication. You are building confidence. And you are training your mind to think in English. So keep practicing. Keep learning. And remember Joseph. The pit was not the end. The prison was not the end. The difficult season was not the end. Sometimes the chapter you are struggling through is preparing you for the chapter you have been praying for. If you keep learning, you will keep growing. And if you keep growing, your future can look very different from your past. Keep practicing. Stay courageous. And I will see you in the next English story lesson.